Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the next Siddhi, which is of the nature of antardhanam. This is taken as disappearance. But of course, this is not the disappearance that perhaps a magician might effect. But the word is antardhanam. It is something that Yogi dissolves himself within himself. The word antardhanam, something antaha, that is something to do with the inside. So yoga gets inside in his very form, and that's why the yogi seems to be disappeared. So this is not disappearance. Disappearance is not to appear. But this is something different than that, because this is yogi's feat after having attained a Samyama. So there is a Samyama of particular kind, and that makes yogi, his body dissolve into himself. So that is how this Siddhi has to be understood, and it is not, as the word in English suggests, disappearance. So for antardhanam, yogi needs a Samyama. And this happens by not a magic miracle, but knowledge, intuitive knowledge, realization of the kaya rupam. The kaya means body, and the form of the body. He knows the form of the body, and it is intuitively realized, and the Samyama is in the kaya rupam. Now kaya rupam is not the appearanceable form of the body merely, because that is not a subject matter which requires samadhi. You can stand in front of the mirror and you will know your form, appearanceable form. So kaya rupa has various levels in metaphysics, and those aspects which are beyond perception, cognition, they need Samyama. The Samyama is not on something that is visible, having a form for empirical perception. So kaya rupa means that form of the body which is invisible, and not the visible body. As I just now said, for a visible body you need to stand in front of the mirror and you will know what is its form. But we do not know the form of the body, which is subtler and subtler and subtler and metaphysical. So at the outset we have to understand the word kaya rupam should not be taken to mean as it literally means. Kaya means body, rupam means form. So the reference is not to the form of the body that is visible, but the form of the body that is invisible, and therefore it is only object of samadhi. So that's why I said just now that for this kaya rupa, and for kaya rupa to be coming as a substrate for samyama, object for samyama, you don't have to do it on your visible form of the body, which can be taken reflection of by standing in front of the mirror. So, there are so many other forms of the body, and even on the grosser plane, let me tell you that even a tamed dog also tries to take olfactory perception, sensation of his master and anyone and everyone. The dog comes closer to you and smells you. Now that is another form of the body which is beyond and besides visible form of the body. The dog is said to be identifying a person by the smell that comes from the body. And the dogs have special perception of the olfactory nature. And that is why we know that in the investigative departments or police departments, there are certain dogs maintained, and that is called dog squad. So, we all identify the person by visible form. But some animal like dog tries to identify the person by the smell. And even blind person has this extra kind of perception that he identifies the people around him by smell, because he doesn't have the vision. So he cannot be seeing the physical form of the body, but he makes the other form of the body as object, like a blind person making olfactory dimension of the physical form of the body and therefore identifying a person. Or as I just now told you, in dog squad, the dogs are specialized and they can identify the persons or the people. And let me tell you here that we human beings don't just have a kaya rupam, but we have other forms as well. That is sound form. Our voice makes someone identify who we are. So our voice is also our form. Then, as I just now said, the olfactory sensation. So even olfactory sensation helps someone to identify someone. So we have Sharira Rupam, we have Shabda Rupam, we have Gandha Rupam, we have Sparsha Rupam as well. Sometimes we can identify a person by touch. So we have these forms. It should be understood that the body of human being is panchikruta, and we have considered the panchikaranam on an earlier occasion, and we have seen how the body has 5 elements in it, and our embodiment has Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha dimensions in the forms. They are not, our body doesn't have physical dimension that's so many inches by so many inches, that's 6 foot tall and width of about 1.5 to 2 feet and girth of about a foot or less than a foot, etc. So we have length, width, girth. That is a physical form of the body. It has these dimensions. But the human body is not just an object of visual organ. Human body is object of all the 5 senses. all the five Jnanendriyas. So there are so many different forms. These are the forms of grosser body, where there is Shabdatmakata, Sparshatmakata, Rasatmakata, Gandhatmakata, Rupatmakata, etc. But the body beyond the phenomenal has other forms as well. So these other forms are known by analysis and classification by Samyama on the Kaya Rupa. So Yogi does Samyama, or Yogi has a Samyama on the Kaya Rupam or Kaya Rupam, and these are not only physical dimensions but other dimensions as well. Otherwise, the physical dimension, if you consider the full size mirror, can depict that, or full body scan can also reveal something. So our Rupa Jnana is possible by standing in front of a full size mirror or full body scan, standing in front of a full body scanner. That also will give vision of certain dimensions of a physical dimensions of the body. But here it is a case of Samyama, and Samyama has unique samarthyam or unique power. That is one thing. Secondly, our human form or human body and its form takes the light rays and then sends the rays back, and therefore we can be seeing. So unless the rays emanating from any object or body, we cannot be seeing that object. Just because there is light and there is object, it's not that we see the object. The light is refracted from the object, and then we receive some waves into our eyes, the sound, the form waves, rupa valaya, and therefore we are able to see an object at sight. It's not only that light falls on object, but the light rays also emanate from the object, and therefore they become visible objects. That's how the visual organ functions. So that is another thing. This is what is clear in the sutra. The other thing is that if the rays emanating from that object, a visual object or a body of a person, if they are arrested, if the light rays are arrested, you won't be seeing that object. So therefore some facts about our visual perception is to be understood here, recalled here, and of course Patanjali does mention that in his sutra. Kaya Rupa Samyamat. Then the Prakasha Kiranam aspect also is brought in the sutra. So it's a very interesting sutra that Patanjali has given. Kaya Rupa Samyamat Tad Grahya Shakti Stambhe Chakshu Prakasha Asamprayoge Antardhanam. If the light rays emanating from object do not reach our eyes, we don't see the object. Object is very much in front of us. But unless the light rays emitted by the object, they reach our eyes and parts of the eyes such as retina, we won't be seeing the objects. So this fact of physics is endorsed by Patanjali. So if the prakasha, light coming from object, reaches our eyes, we see the object. When it is pitch dark, light is not emitted, therefore we don't see the object. When the area is illuminated and yet we don't see the object, it is because the rays emitted by the objects do not reach our eyes. Now in case one is able to stop the rays, then the things will not be also seen. Like suppose an opaque wall is kept between object and your eyes, you won't see the object. The reason is that light rays emitted by the objects are arrested, thwarted, stopped from entering your eyeballs, and therefore you don't see the object. Therefore we don't see the thing which is beyond a wall, behind a wall. That means the light rays can be stopped. How are the light rays stopped? By keeping an opaque object in between the eyes and that object. So like a wall. So the physics of visual perception is definitely mentioned in the sutra, and then much more than that is also being mentioned. I recall an incident of Mahabharata. When the Pandavas had raised up their kingdom, Indraprastha, there Yudhishthira performed a yajna called Rajasuya yajna, and then all the Kauravas were invited, and this was constructed, the palace was constructed by a divine architect, and therefore it was a piece of marble. And then Duryodhana enters the palace and he moves in the palace. Now somewhere he doesn't identify the wall in the form of glass, which is see-through glass, and then he dashes against it. Now somewhere he doesn't see the wall, which is made up of a transparent thing like the glass, which is see-through object, and he dashes against it and hurts his head. Elsewhere he thinks there is a wall and therefore hesitates to proceed further, and actually there is no wall. The floor there appears to be a beautiful designed floor, and he steps onto the floor there and sinks into the water, because that happens to be a water tank. So he doesn't identify that it's a water body. He steps his foot and falls in the tank. Elsewhere he carefully walks and he somewhere thinks that there is a water body, a tank, and he carefully steps his foot and it happens to be a floor and not water. So Duryodhana had a very intimidating time in the Indraprastha when he went to visit Pandavas. And Mayasura had raised up their magical palace, and therefore Duryodhana faced what I just now explained. So the point is, there must be light, the light rays must fall on an object must send back waves, they should reach the eyes, and then you have visual perception. Now here, Kaya Rupa Samyama is mentioned, it's a Samyama. And then Chakshu Prakasha Asamprayogam, or Chakshu Prakasha Asamprayogam because of Stambhanam. And by doing such things, the yogi effects disappearance. But the disappearance is not as the word means, but it is antardhanam. He dissolves within himself. He knows various forms of the body in the physics of the body to inner and subtler planes of body. Then there are metaphysical planes of body. So these are nominal. So yogi dissolves his body into something that is nominal substance, or having a parentage to this physical form of body, and therefore the antardhanam is affected. So that is what the sutra is telling us. So Prakasha, Chakshu Prakasha Asamprayogam is also involved. This is after Samyama is attained. And therefore yogi seems to be disappeared. And as I said, it is not disappearance in the sense disappearance, but it is antardhanam. He dissolves into the subtler aspects of body, metaphysical aspects of body, the inframatter and the supramatter and inframatter of the body, and therefore the yogi seems to have disappeared. So that is how this Siddhi has to be understood. Now let us look into Vyasas' commentary and try to understand this particular Siddhi that is being mentioned. So Patanjali says, Kaya Rupa Samyamat Tatgrahya Shakti Stambhe Chakshu Prakasha Samprayoge Antardhanam. So by Samyama on one's own body, he is able to develop a power whereby the light radiated by the body will not reach the eyes of the other person. That is called Shakti Stambha. Grahya Shakti Stambha. Stambhanam. And therefore perception doesn't happen. And therefore the disappearance is effected. Kayasya rupe samyamat rupasya ya grahya shakti staha pratishthabhjati. This is what Vyasa tells us. By samyama on the form of the body, and the form of the body, I repeat, is not as we take the form of the body, having some size, dimension, complexion, etc., or which you sight by standing in front of the mirror. And then with that Kaya Rupa Samyama, he is able to hold back the rays emitted by the body. He is able to thwart it, he is able to stop it. ग्राह्य शक्ति स्तंभे सति चक्षु प्रकाश असंप्रयोगे अंतर्धान उत्पद्यते योगिनः. So the seeing power of the eyes is put some pratibandham. So he is able to put restriction on the power of the eyes to grasp the vision. So the light rays which emanate from his body are held back, and that is how the antardhana siddhi takes place. So in the antardhanam, it should be understood, this is a special word of the language and the subject here. Otherwise we loosely translate antardhanam as disappearance. But yogi's disappearance is different than a magician's disappearance, or maybe somebody having some intuitive power, occult power, etc. So he dissolves the grosser form of the body into the subtler form of the body, visible form of the body into invisible form of the body. The body is very much there, it doesn't mean that he should be moving elsewhere. He is very much there, but yet there is disappearance. Another thing is that suppose your body as it is opaque, and therefore something behind you cannot be seen by the person in front of you, because our physical body is opaque, there is opacity. So suppose the opacity goes away and you are able to make your body transparent like a sheet of glass, which is something see-through object. The glass is something that you can see through. Many times we don't see the glass, but we can see through. We can see what is beyond the glass. So imagine yogi becomes transparent in every aspect. So we will be able to see through yogi's body and see what is behind the yogi. That's also another meaning of this antardhanam. So that is what Patanjali and Vyasa are telling us here. Etena shabdadi antardhanam uktam veditavyam. Having mentioned the rupa jnanam and samyama there, sharira rupam and samyama there, that is the rupa form. But then we have other forms as well, such as we have form of touch, we have form of odor, etc. So there, apart from rupa antardhanam mentioned in the sutra, Vyasa tells us that there are other antardhanam as well, called sparsha-antardhana, rasa-antardhana, gandha-antardhana, and not just rupa-antardhana. It's not only form that disappears, but even the form that is there in English for our body, embodiment. So there is also possibility of sparsha-antardhanam, rasa-antardhanam and gandha-antardhanam. This has been made clear in the sutra. And the process should be understood as it is described in relation to the eyes and visual object and visual perception. The same process is to be understood here. So that is how Patanjali describes the Siddhi of antardhanam. Now, let us try to understand the rupam of the body, rupam of the body. So peripheral form of the body has visual perspectives and dimensions. Therefore, you are able to identify the size and dimensions and the complexion of the body skin. That is a bright body, this is a dark body, etc. Or this is a brown body, etc. So, these are the forms of our visible body. But this body is made up of elemental matter of body, and the matter of body is by elemental matter. Elemental matter is by the tanmatra is by ahankar is by mahatattva. So one can reach the level of sattva rajatama paramanus in understanding the form of the body. So these are the various forms which are available to the body, and not just the form of the body that we commoners are familiar with. So this body matter is again made up of quintiplicated elements. That is again made up of, as the science today postulates, that it is made up of subatomic particles. So let's try to understand this, but for the time being enough. We will consider next time, taking account of something which the Saura Vijnanam of Arsha Shastras tells us. That's quite fascinating and interesting topic. Saura Vijnanam, whereby yogi's body can become transparent like glass. Now you know that our body is opaque. It's not a see-through matter, but the body can be transformed into glass-like see-through matter, and that also would mean the yogi disappears. So how the body matter can become glass matter? This is an interesting topic. So let's try to understand the scientific and logical process that is available to us from Saura Vijnanam. But that we will do in our next session. Enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.